Okay, and in this video what we're going to do is continue on our study of supply, talk about quantity supplied, all this kind of stuff, but realizing and remember that we are looking at this from the firm's point of view. Now don't forget the real world issue number one that we're dealing with in the IB DP economics course, which is how do consumers and producers achieve their economic objectives. Okay, so this is the start of the study of how producers achieve their economic objectives. All right, so please keep that in mind. Now, we'd already talked about the law of demand. Now we are going to introduce the law of supply, and that is exactly what we're doing now. A couple of definitions, right? First of all, the definition of supply, which we already had in the last video, this is the willingness and ability of producers, of firms, of companies, to produce a quantity of a good or service. All right, no problem there. Now, the only reason I put in effective supply, because there's this thing called effective demand. You have to be both willing and able. And look, I haven't even made any difference between the two definitions. Just willing and able to produce goods and services at different prices over a specified period of time. All right. Now, the supply curve, which we will introduce today, slightly different to the demand curve, but once you understand demand, then sometimes I suppose one way of looking at it is that it's just the opposite. Okay, this shows the relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity supplied. It is normally upward sloping. Right? Why is that? Well, we'll talk about this. And supply schedule, a table showing the quantity supplied at each price. Now, this is the question that we're coming to in this video, and I hope you'd see that there really is. So the very first thing we're going to do is introduce the supply schedule, which is a table that shows the quantity supplied at each price. Now, what we are looking at here is, again, I'm dealing with euros, I'm Irish, such is life. Okay, so as the price rises, what happens to the amount of this good that the firm is willing to produce and then bring to the market in order to sell? And what I want you to see is, can you explain intuitively, logically, why the selling price of the good rises? This is the bit. This is not cost of production. This is the price, the reward, the price, the amount of money that the firm or the seller receives when they sell each unit of a good. All right, why can you tell me, if this is just one firm supply schedule, why the price, when the price rises, the quantity supplied increases, and when the price falls, the quantity supplied falls? I hope you can. I'm not going to say anything, but I hope you can. Now, my advice is just pause the video here. I'm just pause the video and take a photo of this, because we're going to draw it now in a second. Okay, so we've done the supply schedule. And I will repeat the trivial answer. There's a more involved answer which we'll come to later on. Far more involved. But right now, I will repeat the trivial answer that we did in the previous video, which is about profit margin per good sold. Before we start anything, we don't have a demand curve here. We have to put them together, and that's what a market is, demand and supply. But what we do have is a title. We have a price with currency. We have a zero at the origin. We have quantity of units per time period, okay? And then now what we're also going to have is, I'll just say this in a second, because here's the first dot that I've put, is S1 for supply curve. So obviously at a price of 0, nothing is supplied, but at a price of 1, 5 units were supplied. At a price of €2 per good sold, per good, price is the unit price. Okay, 10 units were supplied. At €3, 15 units. At €4, 20, and at €5, 25 units. Now, if I join those dots, we get a supply curve which is upward sloping from left to right. What that is showing is that there is a law of supply, provided that this is a reasonable and unusual curve. The law of supply, which I'll come to later, but basically saying is, if you pay me more to do something, I'm going to do it more often. So basically, if as the price rises, firms are willing and able to produce more, bring more to sale. Why? Now, the trivial answer, surprisingly, and this may sound technical, but it's not, is because at higher prices, ceteris paribus, other things being equal, the profit margin per good sold is higher. Now, that's the trivial answer. All right. Basically, ceteris paribus doesn't apply here, because at higher levels of quantity, your marginal cost rise. But we'll go into all of that now. We'll go into all of that in later videos. Right now, It's suffice it to say that at higher prices, ceteris paribus, the profit margin per goods sold increases. That is why that as prices increase, the quantity supplied also increases. Now, I've said all that. It's from this slope we get the law of supply. So what's the law of supply? Well, let's see if we can do it here. As the price of a good rises, not even service, or as the price of a good or service rises, the quantity supplied will normally rise. Now, in the next video, we shall do only 2 exceptions to the law of supply, but it's just important to keep. Now, sorry, I went too far there, so I want to have a look at here, leave you with this on the screen. The law of supply states that as the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied will normally rise. Now, going just to quickly look at this again here, what we've got here is we're going to try and trace the law of supply. As the price increases, quantity supplied increases. As the price decreases, quantity supplied decreases. Now, what that means is that when we're drawing this, it's an upward sloping line. And basically what that is saying is that at higher prices, the profit margin per good sold increases, therefore firms are willing and able to supply more of the good, and at lower prices the profit margin per good sold decreases, therefore firms are willing and able to supply less of the good. Okay, an upward sloping supply curve means that as price rises, quantity supplied increases, as price falls, quantity supplied falls. Why? Well, for the moment all we're going to say, and we're going to give a much better answer later on, but for the moment all we're going to say is because the profit margin per good sold increases at higher prices. Alright? And the law of supply, pretty much I've done this video twice, as the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied will normally fall. Now guys, thank you so much indeed. I really hope this helps, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.